everybody, and welcome to the final session of Pause Fest. Whoa, it is 5:15 on a Saturday afternoon. You could be watching the cricket. You could be fussing around on Facebook. You could be giving your significant other a sensual foot massage. It's Valentine's Day, but you've decided to come here. So I want you to give yourselves a big round of applause, yeah? Woo! It's been a long day. Cool stuff's going on. Now, my name is James Tuckerman. I'm the founder of Anthill Magazine, the Not So Freaky University, the Cool Company Awards, the Smart 100, the 30 Under 30, and a bunch of other things. But today is not about me. I'm the MC. Today is about a very cool bunch of people known as the $1 billion faculty, the B faculty, and I'm going to be introducing those guys in a minute. And if you're casting your eyes across, you might be going, hey, isn't that the Carmen Muesli person? Isn't that Carolyn Creswell? Oh, is that Adrian Giles over there? Is that the guy that co-founded Hitwise and then sold it a couple years later for $30 million? $300 million! Woo! It's Valentine's Day and I'm getting hot. Isn't it the guy from Grilled who took burger joints and made them hot and sexy and hip and cool and now has 75 in the country? Oh, they're the people that we're going to be learning from tonight, huh? Cool. But before I introduce them, we need to do a little bit of housekeeping. Firstly, this is not television. This is not television. So your interaction is expected. It's the end of the day. I know some of you are ready to clock off. Some of you are also beginning to think about the after party that kicks off at 8, I think, huh? 6? 6:30, I think. 7? Who knows? But your interaction is expected today. Now, because of that, I noticed that there's a whole lot of people standing at the back. I also noticed that there's some spaces in the middle. What I would like you to do is I would like you to squeeze a little closer together, okay? You're all going, oh, do I have to? All right, it's called networking. It's not net funning, it's networking, okay? So really quickly, this is what I want you to do. I want you to stand up. Stand up, come on, stand up. I'll tell you what, the first person who stands up gets a prize. I don't know what it is, dude, but you're getting it. Stretching, dude. Stand up, move down, slide together. If you're one of the BSchool students, come down the front here. There's spots allocated to you. Squeeze together, come down, squeeze together, move together like that. You're doing a great job, everybody. Keep the love happening. Now, when you sit down next to someone, just turn around, look them in the eye, give them about a wink, get a bit of a wink and say, Happy Valentine's Day. I think my ovaries are heating up. They might explode. Okay, it was said that free Wi-Fi is available, powered by BSchool. In fact, BSchool has been providing your Wi-Fi all day because that's the kind of lovely people that they are. If you want to be using Wi-Fi, all you need to do is download the Pause Fest app if you haven't done so already, or access the login directly from the Wi-Fi area of your smartphone. This is unusual, this is absurd. I'm giving you permission to pull out your phone. All right, so you're allowed to pull out your phone because, as I said, this is not television. We want you to interact and we want you to be part of this, and we want you to be ready to use Twitter. Have you heard of that? Yeah, my dad said I need to be on the Twitter. Apparently it's a pretty big deal. So if you use Twitter, pull out your phone and go and do that. Okay. And you're doing that? Yes? All right, wonderful. So to kick things off tonight and deliver the formal welcome, we have in our midst the incredibly entrepreneurial dynamic duo responsible for creating the business that is BSchool and for putting together this afternoon session. But before we introduce them, we have a video. Roll the tape.
You look at, I guess, traditional education. I always say, you know, if you went into a coma 100 years ago and you woke up today, you know, you'd still feel kind of relatively comfortable in the classroom because things haven't evolved as much as it may have in other areas of, you know, of daily life.
And I think everything we're doing with BSchool is really comes from the thought of what is the course that we wish we'd done. 5 years ago, 10 years ago? What would we like our staff to be doing right now, or what we would like them to have done before we employed them?
So to be able to package it up in a way where you've access to some of Australia's leading entrepreneurs, which collectively our B faculty has turned over more than $1 billion totally, gain insights from them and most importantly learn from their mistakes.
But the employees that really go on to the next level, that become the really valuable people that get promoted and get given the best opportunities in a business, have a slightly different attitude, and they really have this attitude of an entrepreneur, working in a business.
Whether you're an entrepreneur, you're in a business and want to launch a new product, you've got some aspiration to start a business one day, BSchool creates this agility where you can grab tools and put them on your tool belt when you need them. It's over 12 months, it's got 8 units by some of 8 of Australia's leading entrepreneurs who take you all the way from ideation all the way through to commercialisation. It's study now, pay later, vet fee available, and there's a whole range of other benefits as well, such as events, masterclasses, networking, and a whole range of other things that our BSchool concierge can offer. So if you're thinking about downloading entrepreneurial thinking, I guess, into your personal software yourself, I think BSchool's the perfect opportunity.
It was a no-brainer for me to join BSchool. When I first started out, I didn't have this level of access to people who had, walked the path.
The way that BSchool approach education, the creative way that they've come up with their courses, the way that they're structuring their courses, that's what's going to make the successful entrepreneurs of the future, and that's why I got involved.
I joined BSchool because I think that what BSchool is trying to do is revolutionary, and I think people need to start challenging the way that they think.
We exist inside a fairly restrictive, financially challenged environment in the Australian economy, and it's important that we have new ways of educating people, new ways of thinking about educating people, particularly entrepreneurs.
Being an entrepreneur, and if you have been lucky to have success, it's a personal responsibility that we bear to be able to share that knowledge with other people.
So to actually portray or give a little bit back in that regard and share our story or my story then means that hopefully others can reach out, grab something that might be relevant to them, because I tried on many fronts across many people to do the same thing.
We want our students to walk away with a framework. If they've got an idea, they're currently employed in a job and they're trying to launch a new product, they're trying to grow or scale their business, we want to give them an entrepreneurial framework and I guess DNA of what other successful entrepreneurs are doing.
Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the podium here the two founders of BSchool, the guys that you saw on the screen here, David Truen and Ryan Trainer, who have a very cool announcement. Woo!
It's actually pretty embarrassing, actually. No, fantastic. Welcome everyone here today. It's really inspiring actually listening to some of the speakers here today, and just the unique thought, and I guess just people here just willing to think differently and challenge that status quo. I'd also like to welcome, we've got a lot of BSchool students here today as well, so welcome along, and looking forward to catching up later on. And also, just a quick one, which is a little bit self-indulgent, the BSchool guys, which have got the t-shirts on, my stunt double over there, which actually Lincoln, so if you've got any problems, just go to him, don't speak to me. No, but he's him and the BSchool team are just doing an amazing job behind the scenes as well. But just a quick one. I think Pause Fest is I've been listening, and it's always about thinking differently. And I think we need to ask ourselves the question: is education thinking differently as well? I mean, you look at how does someone choose a career? Sometimes it's just in the staff room at school. the careers teacher is often just chosen by who won the toss or who lost the toss at that stage. And then someone needs to make a decision for the next 4 or 5 years of their life. You've got community expectations, your mum and dad standing around the barbecue and wanting their children to be lawyers and doctors and accountants, which we all need. But, you know, if you have a look at where the job shortages are and where careers are going, and I guess Pause Fest is testament to that, all the roles are evolving into the future. You know, do we need to think differently about it as well? Is the current system actually supporting the skills that are actually needed out there as well? Are we creating all this supply of people into industry? Is qualifications now losing its currency? Are we just creating a sausage factory of qualifications that actually don't mean anything anymore? And these are all I guess they're really big questions. So I think when David and I, we started having a think about it, we thought, do we actually need to think about education more as like we're a record label, a digital record label, where our job is to try and create, you know, content on demand when people need it, create some agility around that as well. And also, I mean, I guess from a BSchool perspective, is give access to information experiences to help people on their journey as well. But I think the big thing out of all of this is we can kind of go on and crap on about, you know, all these theories and everything. And I think sometimes entrepreneurship is this sexy thing that people talk about. But the reality is, there's no myth. No one gets born with being an entrepreneur, I don't think. I think they have qualities in it. What it really is, and I hope the one thing that, that we can offer today is by listening to these amazing peers, is that it's just about having a go and giving it a crack. And I think if you listen to the stories, I hope that people are underwhelmed and just think that, you know, it's easy. The hardest part is just to take that first step. It really is. And that I'm a person who didn't go to university. I was lucky enough to stumble into entrepreneurship and make a bit of a fist of it, made so many mistakes, we could have 3 hours of that. But I hope people can take away that just to have a crack if you've got that idea and push forward. And talking about having a crack, DT here, we're actually launching a bit of a world first today as well, which I'll just pass over to DT to talk about.
Okay, thanks, Ryan. So look, Albert Einstein once said that if you can't explain simply, you don't understand it well enough. So what we want to do is put future business leaders to the test. And so what we're really proud to do today is, in a world first, announce Tweet Scholar. So Tweet Scholar is the first ever business scholarship awarded on the merit of 140 characters or less. So a business plan in a tweet. It's open to all Australians around the country. All you need to do is enter your game-changing, you know, vision or idea or product idea in 140 characters via a tweet using the hashtag TweetScholar or directly on the BSchool website, and you'll be part of the competition. The B faculty will select the winner in about 4 weeks' time, and the winner will receive a full scholarship to BSchool worth $18,000. So there's no interviews or exams or red tape. 140 characters, and you could be studying with the rest of the BSchool students. So look, we really want to make a difference using the power of digital and social media to help somebody you know, get ahead and get a good start. So if you've got an idea or you know somebody that's got a great idea, jump on board, encourage your friends to have a go as well. More information can be found from the BSchool staff that are here today, or also on our website at bschool.edu.au/tweetscholar. So good luck. Hope you all have a good go, and over to James.
Let's give these guys a round of applause. Gentlemen, what these guys are doing for the education sector is insane. It's insanely good. We all have friends, or maybe that was ourselves, that went to school and didn't quite fit in. There were no alternatives. Now, this particular competition, I think it's hashtag TweetScholar. Is that what it is? Hashtag TweetScholar. And by hitting hashtag TweetScholar and putting in your tweet, of course, you can win that awesome educational package, which is entry into the BSchool. But aside from that, firstly, it's accredited. Second, it's an opportunity to take whatever you're doing in life to another level. And that there is priceless. So, the people over here, many don't need any introduction at all. But to sum up some of their achievements, and as I call you out, why don't you come over and sit down with me, okay? Or sit down over here. All right, here we go. We have Adrian Giles, who founded Hitwise and 10 years later sold it for not $30 million, $300 million, and is one of Australia's most successful venture-backed internet trade sales. Let's give him a round of applause. Carolyn Creswell turned her $1,000 investment into an 18-year-old into one of Australia's #1 selling muesli brands. Carmen Creswell. Simon Crowe turned an idea born over a beer at a pub, we all know that experience, into grilled healthy burgers, and 9 years later there are 74 restaurants around the country. Let's give him a round of applause. Darren Trewern, who we just met, built DT Digital in one of Australia's largest digital agencies, servicing the needs of companies such as Bunnings, Optus, and Tourism Australia. That is DT. Emma Isaacs, +1, has achieved more at 34 than most twice her age, having grown Business Chicks into a national community of over 30,000 members. Or is that 30,001 members in the not-too-distant future? Ryan Trainer, let's give her a round of applause. Ryan Trainer, Republica Education. Ryan started his first company at age 23 and has gone on to build many more, including Australia's largest workforce training business, which he sold to the Washington Post. Ryan Trainer. Richard Forbes, the money man. Richard Forbes has 20 years' experience providing financial and strategic advice to predominantly privately owned businesses and entrepreneurs from startup phase through exit. You want to know about money? This is the guy. Give him a round of applause, Richard Forbes. And last but definitely not least is a guy you may have met earlier today. His name is Pete Williams, and he founded Deloitte Digital and is a recognized thought leader and practitioner in innovation and a super wild card. Pete Williams. All right, so you might have noticed that we have paddles. I know it's Valentine's Day, but these are clearly for panel-related purposes. Okay, so we have paddles. Have you got your paddles? We've got our paddles. Now, we've got 8 people here. We've got 8 big brains, and we've got we've got a lot to cover. It just also occurred to me that there's one thing that I did not mention, and that is, audience, you also have a chance to ask these people a question via Twitter. Now, you're familiar with hashtags now. All you need to do is post your question with the hashtag #BSchool. Ask BSchool. It's at the bottom of the slide. And guess what? The best question submitted, as judged by our B faculty, will win 2 passes to the BSchool VIP after drinks party at tech_bar. So that's hashtag BSchool. So all you need to do is ask your question, and who knows, you might end up, I don't know, downing tequila shots with Pete Williams off Ryan Trainer's belly. Who the hell knows? But what I do want to say is this is a money can't buy opportunity to get to a casual environment, hang out, and just spin yarns with the people on this particular panel. So if you do have a question that you want to ask, hashtag #BSchool. What I want to know is we're all encountered by people who have good ideas, but we're also encountered by people who often have not so good ideas. Has anyone been pitched a not so good idea? More than that. I don't know, tanning salons for toddlers. I don't know, someone pitched shoe rental in China. We only need 1% of the market. We'll all be billionaires of the Chinese shoe rental market. We've all been pitched some terrible ideas. What I want to know is, to kick things off, I want to know if anyone's got a really bad idea that's been pitched, and maybe a bad idea that ended up turning good. Anyone got any terrible ideas? Show your paddles now. Adrian.
I think my first business was my worst idea, and that was working in the hospitality industry. I developed a cash management program that I was selling to pubs, but the problem was I was the one that built it, and I was the only one that knew how to work it. So every time I sold it to a new hotel, I had to go back and fix it or update it or tweak it. And so it was almost a consultancy business, and I was the only consultant. And it taught me that I need to build a business with scale.
Well, that's interesting. An idea came out of that which as a business needs to be able to scale, because otherwise you are not creating a new business. What are you creating? A job. A job for yourself. A job for yourself. Has anyone else got a terrible idea which they started with and then it came good?
Yeah,
or just terrible?
I had a shocker many years ago. It might surprise you. to learn that I was once a fitness fanatic. I don't look like it at the moment, but I used to work out with a personal trainer 5 times a week, and I came across this equipment that we ended up importing from Germany, and it was quite expensive to fund these machines. They're about $150,000 per machine, and I started off with 4 of them, and it was this vacuum therapy technology, and I could just tell it was going to be a fad, but obviously it took me a couple of months to learn that. But yeah, I just lost interest in the business. You know, I spent all this capex and then just totally lost interest. So it was a complete waste of time and resources and money.
What's really interesting about that is over the last 10 or 11 years having launched Anthill, I've got to meet some incredible people. James Dyson, Bill Gates, and a bunch of others. But I remember that on that day that I met those 2 people, it was a weird, one of those surreal things. I walked home at the end of that day and I thought about one thing, and perhaps you can agree with me here, is that great entrepreneurs are not driven by wealth creation, they are driven by the passion of creation itself. And Emma just said there that what happened to that business?
I just sold the machines at a huge loss back to the distributor and closed the doors.
Because she lost interest. She lost her passion. Anyone else got a really terrible idea?
I've got in my fridge at the moment, people pitch me food ideas often, and someone has pitched Spicy Mite because they think that Vegemite should be spicy.
Oh, yeah.
And they want really spicy Vegemite. And the problem is for some people that might be something that they really want. And you have to look at a business idea and go, it might not just be for you. How does this have mass appeal? I'm not sure Spicy Mite's going to take off.
Spicy Mite, you know what? I wonder if someone can develop a Vegemite that's spicier and more salty. I reckon there's a market in that, of that person. Adrian, you started your business, Hitwise, at a time when the internet was nascent. And of course, you went on to do great things. But in the beginning, a lot of people would have thought that what you were doing was a really dumb idea. How do you pitch something before the market truly understands that they need it yet?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we were told by a lot of people in the market research industry that the methodology that we'd come up with to measure the internet was wrong and it would never work. But you know, just to explain a little bit about it, when the internet first started, when it was quite nascent, people needed to understand how popular their website was and how successful it was. And so, you know, that business problem that existed was first filled by the television ratings industry, who pretty much just applied the same methodology that they'd applied to television ratings to the internet. And the problem was that didn't scale very well because the internet was a very different medium to television. Television only had 25 stations. You didn't need to monitor many people to know exactly which TV shows we watched. But the internet had millions of channels or websites. So you needed a much larger panel of internet users to measure to accurately reflect all the websites that we visited. So we developed a hardware and software solution that sat on the backbone of the internet, working with ISPs, that was able to measure millions of internet users and solve that scale problem. And so when it came to pitching that's pretty much how we pitched it. And I suppose one of the attractive things about the pitch was the fact that it was unique. No one else had done it. It was a new measurement methodology for a new medium that was the internet.
Because pitching is obviously a terribly difficult thing. And we all have been in situations where we've told someone our idea and it may not have gone down so well. One of the characteristics that I seem to notice about businesses that stand out is how they position their market, the way that they focus on a USP, a unique selling proposition. Now, Emma, you run an online community, and it's a very successful one. But there are other online communities out there, aren't there? How did you position yourself to stand out and be a little bit different?
Well, to start with, I started the business 8 years ago now, and everyone said to me, "You don't need. There's no space for a women's community. There's no space for a women's network. The market is completely flooded." But I just knew in my heart of hearts that we could, you know, build scale into and really monetize a community, because no one was properly funded. No one was building it with the right infrastructure behind them. So I just knew in my heart of hearts, my intuition led me to believe that there was an opportunity there. So we just started out very small. When we started, we had 250 members. We've now hit over 35,000. We're about to launch into North America in July this year. So, you know, it's about listening to your gut and not always listening to what other people tell you to do.
And I think that there are certain ways that you separated yourself from everybody else. Are there anything that stood out that you did that really made you different?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it comes back to brand and really knowing your values, and also then being able to replicate your skills as an entrepreneur really, really quickly. So my first job was to make myself redundant in the business. So I now have a team of about 35 people, and the business runs without me. But it very much was leveraging off of bigger brands, people that had brands. So the sort of speakers that we brought out from the States or from the UK, we could leverage off of their personal brands and develop scale quite quickly that way.
And speaking of a saturated market, I walk down the aisles of Coles and Woolworths and I see 1,000 different products jumping at me all the time. Now, Carolyn, you're in the market of muesli. What are some of your hits and what are some of your misses? I think we all know your hits, but you're obviously operating in a very saturated market that's low in saturated fat.
The thing in the supermarket is that 90% of new product launches fail. So, when you have something put on the shelf this year, big chance that it's not going to be on the shelf next year. So it's how do you actually back the winners? And so we spend a lot of time now and a lot of businesses now are based on insights and research, and we watch you guys shop, how long you'll stand there, and then I move very quickly. I have a paranoia, Simon and I were just talking about this, that people think that entrepreneurs are totally confident and that whatever. I feel, a lot of the time we have a paranoia of success, of going, what can we do to make tomorrow better than today? How do we evolve and tweak and pivot and constantly change? So we're always fixing packaging and changing. We've got a muesli bar at the moment that's called yogurt. We're putting Greek yogurt. That's all on trend to try and save products. So it's a daily event.
Have you had one that you've put it out there and then people just haven't wanted to buy it? I don't know, muesli with spicy mite on top?
We had one which was called blueberry seed and nut bars, and obviously sounded too healthy. And
Sounds
so within
nice.
4 weeks, we had this massive meeting and decided what could we do to, through all these crazy ideas. So we changed it to the blueberry superfoods bar. No change in the product, but just, it sounded more appealing. Put a big green superfoods call out on it, and it doubled in sales overnight, and the product survived. So it's constantly trying to find those little things. And then if it doesn't work, don't put your head in the sand. Go, well, hang on, how can I adjust again?
What was really interesting there is, did you hear that 90% of new products in supermarkets fail? 90%. That is a huge risk when you go in to do something like that. So on this topic of risk and risk mitigation, Simon from Grilled, how do you manage all the risks associated with a growing business that involves franchisees and real estate and food that are going to go in people's tummies?
Look, I'd say that risk is an inherent part of any business, but the question is how do you figure out what parts are the riskiest and therefore either dial those down, but also taking risks from a brand perspective so that you're actually not a boring business, and how do you actually then position the brand so that actually it gets recognised, particularly in a marketplace that we were in. Food's very competitive. When we started years ago, it was quite easy though. We were able to point out to the multinationals and call them very much the evil empire, and we were the good cop. So using the landscape that exists to actually then say, well, we'll de-risk some parts of our business, and systems and processes have to play a really important role there. They play a role when you get bigger. They're not significant when you're small. But when you're small, it's the passion part of the business, it's the positioning part of the business, and it's recognising sometimes without money to use, other brands as a means by which you can sometimes then differentiate yourself.
Do you think that entrepreneurs are risk takers?
Yeah, I think the entrepreneur title's an interesting one. I look at the business that I'm in, and my desire and want is to grow a brand that's meaningful, and in that instance it means it needs to stand for something, it has to have longevity, we need to be proud of it, and it has to cross borders. So I hope that what I'm doing is building a business and a brand that's going to be here in 10, 20, 50 years' time, but actually isn't then about building something to sell. Is that entrepreneurship? I'm not sure. I think it's business and brand building, and for me that means that the focus is on the long term and lots of decisions need to be made on a short-term basis. But if you know where the journey is headed to, then I guess in that instance you can frame up the landscape a little bit more.
I'm going to jump to Pete at the end here, who's obviously tweeting.
Well, they're all sitting around.
I'm a bad teacher, aren't I? I see the kids who are not paying attention.
Mr. Shandy, Roberty Bob, can you confirm I've been answering your BSchool questions?
Wow, already.
Yeah.
Totally interactive.
Oh, well.
One of the aspects of running a business or growing a business is that you need to go in knowing that the universe will occasionally kick you in the ovaries, right? Setbacks. How do you deal with setbacks when the world turns? And I know that in Deloitte you're dealing with lots of innovative companies, constantly in an environment where the world keeps turning.
Well, I'm sort of have the fortunate position of being an intrapreneur and working with a group of accountants who've been around for about 170 years. So sort of getting people to change things and to back you is hard. And then when you stuff them up, it's, you deal with it. And my view is own it.
What's that?
Own it.
Own it.
Own it.
Yeah.
If it ain't working, front up. Don't surprise people. Don't overpromise. Get in there and say, hey, this is what we're going to try to do. This is how we're going to prototype an experiment. This is where we think it lives or dies. And look at it as every setback is a learning experience. But the other thing that I've always looked at is, sort of don't bet the farm. What's the fastest, quickest, cheapest way I can bring this idea to life and test if it lives or dies? And sort of I used to be one of the top 100 Angry Birds players in the world, but that's another story. But the one thing I learnt from Angry Birds was rapid iteration. Aim, fire, adjust. What did I learn? Go again. And don't ring up Rovio and say, can I have another blue bird? Because you can't. Do what you can with what you can get and rapidly iterate and learn. And if you make the marginal cost of each, I'm an accountant as well, if you make the sort of marginal cost of each experiment low, you'll never actually have a big failure. So you'll have plenty of setbacks, but do it rapid, learn. And the other thing is, I talk a lot about zoom in, zoom out. Look at and work really hard on what you're doing, but every day, or at worst every week, zoom out and say, well, what are we learning? Is this working? What are we seeing? And bring people with you, and ultimately you get there. But again, it's basically all, are you allowed to swear?
Is he allowed to swear?
Yeah, if you're going to fuck up, don't do it in a big way. Do it in a series of small ones, because all of the time you'll get it right.
Yeah. Well, funny about swearing, I'll actually call that the monkey cage. When you first step in the monkey cage, what do you smell? The monkey shit. And the longer that you stand in that monkey cage, the less you're able to smell the monkey shit. Every now and then you've got to step out of the monkey cage or invite someone else in, so they walk in and they go, what the hell is that monkey smell? And you can say, oh, that's the monkey shit. Now, I picked on Pete because coming from a corporate background, the classic response to trouble in a corporate background, what is it? Success has many fathers and failure is an orphan? That's not going to cut it in the entrepreneur scene, is it? No way. You also mentioned MVP. Now, fortunately, we have DT on the front here. MVP means minimum viable proposition. Don't go big, don't spend up big, start by spending small. Now, you're a bit of an online expert. I'm going to start with a broader question. Is there any business that you can think of in the universe that is not an online business?
Not at all. Not at all, because that's the way we get information about everything now. So even the most non-online business in the world, the research is going to be done online.
Yeah. So like a florist, where do the bookings happen?
Online.
Online.
Yeah, this is the huge change the world's been through in the last 20 years. Is that didn't used to be the case. The internet's come along, and hence, the value of Hitwires, and now everything is about. That's the first. We've got access to all the world's information on every device all the time, and we can connect with anyone else in the world and any company in the world at any point in time as well, which is a huge shift and has huge implications for the ways that businesses are built and the way we communicate, etc.
One of the wonderful things about digital media is obviously it can allow you to build an audience before you launch. Whereas it used to be invest the money, launch the damn thing, and if you build it, they will hopefully come. Now that's not necessarily the way the world works anymore now, is it? At what point would you say someone should start building the audience for the thing that they want to launch?
I think as soon as you've got some kind of ideal that you can that people can kind of rally around, you can start. I think these days, it's more about connecting with people. It's a many-to-many conversation. Before the internet, it was a one-to-many broadcast advertising conversation. Now it's a many-to-many conversation. So as soon as you've got something to talk about, you can start building that audience. And then you've got an audience that's ready to go.
Because one of the things that a lot of people are frightened to do is obviously talk about their big idea. Now, Richard over here looks after people who need money to grow their businesses from a venture capital, private equity, and maybe even angel investment background. How do you respond when someone doesn't want to tell you about their business idea?
It's always an interesting one, but generally, if they don't want to tell us about the business idea, they're probably not going to get any money. And certainly, if you don't ask, you don't get. So it's certainly interesting.
With this idea of the, okay, hey, Pete, he's used his paddle. Everyone, let's just give a round of applause for Pete for using his paddle. Yeah! And just use our bodies a little bit too. What were you going to say, Pete?
Yeah, I mean, I was laughing so much because even during the 90s and the dot-com boom, so many people would come in and say, oh, I've got this really great idea, I need your help. Okay, what's the idea? I can't tell you. It's like, well, see ya. Well, what are you doing? I'm leaving. Why? Well, what do we get to talk about? It's like, if you have an idea and you think the way to get it done is do it by yourself and not tell anybody, you won't get any money, you won't get any support, and you're instant fail.
At what point, Richard, would you sign an NDA, a non-disclosure agreement or a confidentiality document of some sort?
I'd hesitate to sign one for a very long time, generally. Probably when you're absolutely committed and you're going to put a lot of money into it.
I'm going to put this out there and you can agree with me or not, but I actually think it's unethical for an investor to sign NDAs. And the reason why is when you're pitched so many ideas all the time, I don't think that you can honour the NDAs. So I think that right from the outset, you're putting yourself in a position where you're going to break the deal.
We often talk about this and we can never remember anyone who's actually ever been sued under an NDA from an investment perspective. So it's great and they represent the intention, but they never really represent the reality.
You also, I'm sure, focus a lot on people. Are people important when you look to invest?
Absolutely. People make businesses, not businesses make businesses or anything else. I think certainly when people are starting out and come to us and it might be the first thing they've done and just getting a little bit of money behind them, for us it's 90% about the people and 10% about the idea. I think as businesses mature and we're talking about some growth capital, it's a multi-million-dollar business or something, then there's a sustainable business there with a brand and some other things you're investing in, rather than just a young aspirant who's got a great idea and a great set of values and some energy, willing to learn from their mistakes and get behind them. So the people are critical.
Yeah. So would you back a cracker idea with a bad manager over a mediocre idea with a better manager?
Person every time.
Person every time. Now, Ryan, you're in the business of people, right from the outset, that you're in the business of people. In fact, hanging around this guy, you can tell that he's a people person. He loves people. How do you go about deciding and choosing who you work with, and how important is culture in the businesses that you get involved in?
It's critical, and actually, it's probably my favourite part of it. And I mean, a lot of people in the room would have watched the TED Talk by Simon Sinek, and I think it's, our job as leaders is, to help people define who they are, and that's what our job is by creating organisations that actually help people define that, and then you actually attract people that actually want to be part of that vision. So as much as anything, and you've got to get into the detail, I think the job of an entrepreneur is a cheerleader around the place as well. But once you've got really strong values, and every decision we make define who we are, and I kind of think about that every time within the organisations that I'm part of. And then there's three things, I guess, that I think about, when building a team. The first one is, would they wear the company T-shirt? Are they part of the culture? Is that something that actually that they actually want to do? The next thing is, what's their unique superpower? Can they use that 80% of the time? And do I need that with that role? So it doesn't matter about their experience in that industry, but can they apply that there as well? And the last one is, do I take them home to meet mum?
Well, I was going to ask you.
And that's a risky business if you've met my mum. But she's. But you know what I mean. It's about ethics and just surrounding yourself with good people. So I think we can overcomplicate things, but I think at the end of the day, culture. I think everyone would agree is just the heartbeat of the business. Because
I want to take you back down memory lane a little bit. So I've known you for a long time now, probably about 10 years, and I remember you telling me about building your first business. What role did your mum play in that very first business of yours, the training business?
Well, well, my mum was apprehended shoplifters for a business, so that was pretty interesting. So now you go to Coles supermarkets and there's a few familiar people in the audience, so you just got to watch out there. But she used to I just go shopping now, and then she's bloody going down aisles and nabbing people because she's apprehended nearly 10,000 people. And she used to tell me, you know, about all these problems, about shoplifting. So my first business was actually education, how to reduce shoplifting, which was a pretty average idea, going around to small businesses and doing it. But that average idea led into another idea. And Mum was a massive, and for people that know me, you know, Mum backed me in. She mortgaged her house in my first business when I was 23. I was very stressed in the fetal position most nights, thinking about Mum in a cardboard box. And the rest is history, and there was a good story that came out of it, which was great. But it's funny, you know, people come in and influence your life, and my mum was one of those.
When we talk about culture, I think that your mum has a lot to answer for in a very positive way. Emma, you mentioned before that you've got about 30 people, and as well too, these people who work for you, they are your foot soldiers. They're on the front line. They're fronting events. They're doing all sorts of things. How do you get the culture right, and to have done it so quickly?
Well, I think culture is really just another word for leadership. So you can give all the free massages, you can have a private chef in, you can have a masseuse in every week to your business, which are all initiatives and tactics that we employ in our business to make our workplace a happy place. But unless you have really, really strong leaders in your business, no one's going to want to work there. So we all know that people leave managers, they don't leave businesses. So I think it's really, really important to equip your line managers with really strong leadership skills.
Has anyone else on the panel got a really good idea that they use to get the right people into their organisations? Recruitment tactics, strategies, hacks, tricks?
I get my employees to recruit their mates. So I employ really good people. They went to uni with other good people. They'll know who fit in, and when they do come in, they'll onboard them faster. So use the networks of your employees. And the other thing is they'll own the success of that employee as well. So don't try and do it yourself. Use your people.
And we have another paddle here, on the paddle.
I was just going to talk about culture briefly. I mean, running DT in that sort of digital marketing advertising space, finding good people and keeping good people is so difficult, and it's such a big issue. But I think, you know, more than all that, you know, and places like DT, you know, we do all sorts of different things in terms of race around the world and, you know, corporate massage, and you get your birthday off and all these different things. But I think at the end of the day, I think what people want is they want good leaders. You know, they want to work at a place where they align with the values. They want to know that they've got career progression opportunities. And I think thinking about the culture of DT, which I think has got a very strong culture, I think a lot of it goes back to the very early days of the business. And my wife is up here. We often talk about this, that the things we did when it was a 3 or 4 person business are still embedded in the culture now at a 200 person business, and it almost can't be killed because you attract certain people, they hire other people like that, who hire other people like that when they're out of the business, but that culture continues on because it's embedded in the kind of DNA of the business.
I think that one of the things that happens is if people don't feel safe, it's the role of the leader to make everyone feel safe, and if no one feels safe, you end up with a dysfunctional team. Adrian?
I was just going to say, I think also people need to feel that they're doing something significant and believe in a higher sort of purpose for things. I remember the last 3 or 4 years at Hitwise, my role as sort of founder was literally to just fly around the world and visit all the offices giving pep talks to people about the fact that we were trying to change the way that the internet was measured. And that gave people that higher purpose. They felt like they were doing something significant. They'd then go and talk to other people, and that would attract people to the company. And it's the same in other businesses that I'm involved in now. You're trying to find that higher purpose that you can, you know, explain easily to people to allow them to attract others and to make them feel like they're actually part of something special. Which
is connected to Simon Sinek, The Why. If you haven't looked that up, look up the TED Talk, Simon Sinek, Why. I'm going to take it to a slightly different place for a second. I want to talk about pitching again. What are some of the wildest, craziest, most unusual places that any of you have been pitched to? Because once you reach a certain level as an entrepreneur, suddenly people will find it, I don't know, irresistible to pitch, not to you, more often than that, at you. Any wild, crazy places or any wild, crazy pitches?
I find urinals are really good.
The urinal.
a urinal, and then they go to shake your hand at the end.
Oh!
It's just a no-no. You just pat them on the back and go, we'll talk about it later.
What did someone pitch to you at a urinal?
Well, it's just like I've been meaning to catch up with you, and I've got this great idea, and I'd love to talk to you about this. And
you should probably not eat so much vitamin B.
Yeah.
And
Which is
on
good.
it goes.
Go for it.
Anything else? Emma, you look like you were good at... No, it's all right. I was just thinking about, all the different situations that you get into as a pregnant person. And, they're doing the osteo thing, and they say, hey, I got an idea. No, it doesn't happen. All right. Anyone else? Up.
I was in the surf once with my kids. Someone came up, and it was quite a rough day in the sea, and they're trying to... I can't even remember what the idea was, and they were trying to pitch this idea while we were swimming, and I was like, just ring the office. Yeah, I know. Anyway.
I'll tell you what, does anyone drive Uber? I'm constantly getting pitched by Uber drivers lately. Constantly turning around and like, I had a business idea by Uber drivers. Richard, all right, so how should someone go about pitching if they do want to pitch someone, say, for money or even better, smart money?
Well, it's the, I guess, the dumb money and the smart money, and apologies to all the family and friends who fall into probably the dumb money category, not that you're dumb people, but the smart money is probably more the sophisticated money. I think the first thing you want to do is do, obviously, the Diploma of Business at BSchool, which will well prepare you, and certainly Shake the Tin Unit 7 will well prepare you for how you go about it. But ultimately, people want to know what's the need you're actually going out there to try and address. What's that urgent need? Is it revenue? Is it cost? Is it something emotional? What is that? What's your solution? How are you going to do that? How do you actually articulate it? You need to articulate it very, very simply. Then, do you actually have a competitive advantage? Do you have competitors? I so often get proposals, we were talking about this earlier, where people have this great attachment to their thing, their idea, their fluffy little toy that they've created, which has got a cool logo and a great Uber-sounding name or whatever it might be, but they won't really go and address, well, is there actually anyone else out there doing this, and at what price point are they doing it? Does this actually economically make sense? And they know deep down probably the answer is no. But they're so attached to the idea, they'll come in and see me anyway, and you work through the process and you get to that, well, great, there's all these people out there, so you're going to sell at the same price as everybody else, and your only point of differentiation is it's got a fluffy little thing on it. Okay, so you're up against Mattel and all the rest of it. So it's an interesting but a constant thing I see in all the pitches, and the course that the guys have set up has got a fantastic structure and framework around exactly the key things that people want to see before they're actually going to write you out a cheque. I'm
going to put you on the spot. Well, I'll put the whole crew on the spot. Did any of you watch Shark Tank last week? Someone just went over there and went, yes! You obviously liked it, whoever said that. What I want to know, how many people in the room watch Shark Tank? Do you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to say, who didn't watch Shark Tank? All right, so about half the room watched it and half the group didn't. I want to ask you here, right? I'm going to start with Richard. Did you see it?
Sorry.
No, all right. Emma, yep, all right, Carolyn did. Would you back the ideas that they backed on that television show? And this is cool because we've got Carolyn's got her own television show.
No, so basically what the show is that people come in with ideas, there's a panel and they put up their own money. So the first idea, the guy came in, they were playing cricket, and often a great idea comes from a need, and they're at the beach and they were using stuff for stumps, and I know with my kids we're often, looking for the same issue, and they worked out that they could put cricket stumps on the back of an esky, and they could flip up the back, and they had an ability of make this esky cricket stumps. And in the end, Naomi Simpson from Red Balloon put up 200,000 in a loan and 80 grand to buy half the business. And so it was 280 grand that she was putting in. And I was like, it's quite a baddish thing. I think sometimes you can get sucked into things, and because it felt the decision making was quite quick. But then there was some other interesting stuff. So, people were buying half business or lots of businesses for $2 and stuff because they wanted the smarts of the contacts and stuff. So it was interesting. At the end of the day, I can tell you, being on reality TV, don't necessarily believe everything that you see. That's real life, but it was an interesting show.
Can you remember how they were going to spend the money that they were going to put into the business? Can you remember how they said how they were going to spend the money, the two founders?
I can't remember what.
Everyone's going, what? That's how would you spend the money? And the two founders said, well, 150 grand for his salary and 150 grand for my salary.
Yeah.
And you just watched the pens drop the jaws drop. Richard, why wouldn't you invest in a business where the money was just going to the people who were into their salaries?
And it's an interesting one. I get more often than not, when I see proposals, they say we want X dollars, and it's just because that's how much they think they can get or need rather than what they're actually going to spend it on. So as soon as you start scratching below the surface of, great, we're going to pay you, what else are we actually going to get? Well, we need to get all these machines and other things or whatever it might be, but there's no money for that. There's actually no thought, more often than not, in how you're actually going to go about spending that money.
Yeah, how they can add value to the business that you're investing in rather than, I don't know, go from one comfortable job to another comfortable job.
Yeah.
De-risk it for them. I want to talk about plans for a second. Plans have come up a little bit, and I'd like to talk to Simon and business plans. So when you started out, how much effort and thought did you put into your business plan?
I actually probably underestimated the importance of it because I was about to leave Foster's where I worked, and I was about to sign a lease for a property to be our first grilled restaurant. And in fact, after I left Foster's, the lease fell over, and I therefore was stuck without a job, and I hadn't completed the business plan. So I spent another 4 to 6 months actually working on it, and meeting with suppliers and getting better chefs to help me with the menu development. And in fact, without that extra time, I would have failed, no question. And sometimes that it's not fate, but you can realise that sometimes these things do happen for a reason, and that extra time and the business plan finesse was the difference, I think, between us succeeding or failing.
The importance of a business plan. Now, Ryan, that's your area of expertise in the B faculty. Business plans, how much effort should you put in, and at what point do they stop being worth the paper that they're written on?
I think that the challenge with business plans is you need to have a great deal of arrogance to think that you can plan something for 3 years and it's just going to be executed seamlessly, because it just doesn't happen. I don't know anyone who's ever been able to do that, and if they can, that's all kudos to them. So I think with the business plans is focusing on, firstly, is really around the vision of where you actually want to take the business, and I guess the stretch goals of what you actually want to achieve. The way that I guess from my experience is trying to structuring it is in having goals. Rather than actually having a plan, and then breaking those goals into projects, and then allocating those projects so everybody understands what's important within the business. And then what happens with the meetings then is that you're actually talking about, do you persist or pivot? So then the business is kind of evolving. So this business plan is something which is just a living thing. So it's a project plan within your business, deciding whether to pivot or persevere on everything that you do. And then what happens is you start focusing on the essential few rather than the important many. Because the problem is that there's so much stuff you can do. What are the things that are going to make the big impact? So I think with business planning, it's about chunking it down into projects, allocating who's responsible for what, perseverance or pivoting, and then making sure that everybody understands what to focus on within the business.
So quickly, how many of you use your paddles now? Your business, by the time it was, say, sold or a couple of years in, looked exactly the same as the business plan. No paddles went up. Now, how important was the business plan? Did you think it was a valuable experience putting it together?
Very, very.
Put your paddle up if you think it was. Hi! No, you don't think it was important? Well, that's interesting. Wow, okay. But didn't you just say it was vitally important? All right. Oh, he doesn't have a paddle. He doesn't have a paddle. Yeah, great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think what Ryan said there was really about this notion of, hey, for us to succeed, we've got to do this, we've got to get this breakthrough, we've got to do this. What a lot of people think business plans are sort of giant chunks of stuff they've put off of somebody else's market research, spreadsheets with 3,000 assumptions for the next 10 years and stuff. It's not about trying to be detailed in predicting everything, but it's saying, hey, this is the logical next step. These are the breakthroughs we need to do. These are what have to be true to do it. So plan at a more strategic and action level, but if you're spending your life sort of 6 months, refining a spreadsheet and think you're business planning, all you're doing is sort of spinning your wheels. I don't know, what do you think is a money blow?
Just to explain why I also didn't put my paddle up then was because I've written some business plans, but they've all been crap and wrong. And what I've learned over the course of a few of these businesses is that things will always take a lot longer cost a lot more and be a lot harder than you think, and that the ultimate successful business that you have is going to look a lot different than when you first started, right? So where I've seen good business plans is where the entrepreneur is honest about that and recognises those things in the business plan and then writes it accordingly. So they might only write the first 6 months and then say, and from that we're going to learn this, this and this, and then work out what we need to do. And if someone wrote that in a business plan, I'd give it a lot more credit than something that planned 3 years out.
I think the challenge is also that you can't assume what the customer wants. And at the start you very you think that this is exactly what the customer is going to be wanting. And in my first business, I started by doing reducing shoplifting for small retailers, but there was this one moment where I had the question: do you provide covert loss prevention officers? Of which that stage I had to think very carefully, which took me 1 second, and I said yes. And that moved us from an education business to a workforce business, and within a year and a half we had nearly 300 staff. So there's times, I guess, in a business where, I think a lot of people try and get the perfect idea and manufacture the perfect business plan to start. If you listen to a lot of people, the bad ideas are often the things that get you into business. And then once you're in the business, you're in the game, you're in the cold water, you've jumped in, then you're actually finding out what is actually needed in that stage as well. So not ready, aim, aim, aim. At some stage you have to fire.
Yeah, or ready, fire, aim, ready, aim, fire, fire. I don't know. Fire adjust. All right, we're gonna take some questions from the audience for Ask Business. What I'd like to do is just to get some move our bodies a little bit and get some energy moving through our bodies. What am I talking about? Is what I'd like you to do is I'd like you to think about this, and I want you to ask yourself a question. And this is a fun little interesting game. All right. What you might notice is that when you listen to these people talking, sometimes they're talking about fine detail. They're talking about function. They're talking about execution. They're talking about precision. And then at the next minute, they're talking about having the nice brand or having the personality or having the USP and having all those different things. Now, unfortunately, they are quite distinct skills. So if you can imagine as a human being, there is a spectrum, okay? At one end of the spectrum, you have the people who are fixated on the fundamentals. They are the perfectionists. They're ready, aim, 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 and might never fire. At the other end of the spectrum, you have the people who are interested fundamentals. These people are interested in flair and the big picture and the excitement and making the logo done before the product actually works. Somewhere in the middle is where you want to be. Now, unfortunately, as human beings, we either sit at one end of the spectrum, which also means that it's why you might find organizations where you might have a Steve Wozniak and a Steve Jobs and they join forces. But what I want you to do is I want you to think in your mind and acknowledge on what side of this particular spectrum you sit. Okay? And I'm going to ask you to raise your hand. Now, if anyone's does anyone think that they're bang in the middle? No. You're all saying, good. Who is on the flair side? All about big picture. All right? Who is on the fundamental side? All right, everyone who's got the fundamental side, I want you to turn around to someone who's got their hand down and go, I need you, baby. Do it, I want you to say it. Turn around, spot someone and say, I need you, baby. And then later you track that person down and you buy them a drink. All right, thank you for participating in that. Now you can give yourself a round of applause again. Woo! Because it is Valentine's Day. And I'm assuming if you're here, you're single. Or you're like me, you've got an angry wife at home. All right, so let's have a look at some of the questions that we've got going on here. Jess Simpson. I wonder if that's Jessica Simpson. How do you make your first key hires? What do you look for? How do you sell your vision to someone who could get a less risky job? That's hard. You want to sell someone into your vision, but you're selling a risky job.
Yeah, I actually tweeted it. My view is, do they share your passion? So hire for passion before skills. Passionate people will find the skills, will have the connecting disposition to go out, find the people and bring people on. Highly skilled people who don't care, won't help you succeed. So really start to say, you know, maybe they've got a skill or that, but it's really, do they share your passion and vision? Because if they're passionate about it, they won't see it as a risk. So my view is passion before skills.
Emma?
Yeah, I think enthusiasm and passion trumps, like what Adrian was saying. If you can sell that and people buy into your passion and enthusiasm, that goes a hell of a long way. There's a famous story about Steve Jobs when he was trying to headhunt the then CEO of PepsiCo, and he said to him at the time, do you want to stay here and keep making sugar water, or do you want to come with me and change the world? So I think at the start, your charisma and your vision and your ideas and your enthusiasm and passion gets you a long way.
I think that's what
Yeah, I think that's true. But then what are the criteria? And I think the next layer down from that is, and this is what I tried to do within Hitwise, was to find people who complemented the skills that I didn't have. And if they had the passion and the vision and shared that, and they complemented the skills, kind of perfect match, right?
Yeah, perfect match. Fundamentals flair. You know it, baby. Is MVP a double-edged sword? If you don't know how to handle it, it can kill a good idea. Ad righty. Is a MVP a double-edged sword? A minimum viable proposition?
I don't think so. I think the sooner you can get something out there that you can actually test and get some feedback on, you know, the better.
If you launch an MVP and it kills the idea, that probably tells me that it wasn't a very good idea. That you might have to relook. That's just me,
but you've got the situation, say like Sammartino and the boys did Rentoid, who went on Current Affair and collapsed because, you know, they went broad and out loud, and suddenly the demand was so great that they never could catch up. So that's the wrong side. So I'd sort of say, well, you know, or Zuckerberg had Facebook as a closed network.
23,000.
Until he sort of got that right and then went wang. So yeah, sometimes, you know, it's called overtrading or growing up too fast, and it can make you collapse, but it's about sort of saying, well, how do I test the idea and make sure I can manage scale? But if you just sort of whack it out there and it sort of dies because it's so successful, that happens.
It's probably more about how you launch it and roll it out than whether, you know, it's enough or not.
Handling the implementation and scaling up. James_IRVS. What should you sacrifice and what should you definitely not sacrifice to secure that investment you need to grow your business? How about Richard? Or is that going to be a biased answer? He says, just give it all to me.
And not sacrifice. It's the most expensive capital you'll ever raise the first time you go out and give part of your business away. So so really have a deep understanding of what you're doing, and if you don't understand what you're doing, get some help.
I guess just as an entrepreneur is obviously having had investors, including Rich, involved in businesses, is that, you know, it's the same with employees. You've got to make sure that the people that are involved in the business actually, I mean, there's a level of trust, and they actually believe in what you're doing as well, because everything's fantastic at the start, but when it starts pooing its pants, that's when people's real personalities start kind of coming out. And I think you just need to really sometimes think about, if the worst case scenario happened, how will my relationship be and how will I deal with this person? And you know, you just need to do so much checks on them as well. You got to do due diligence as well, and finding out how they've dealt in other situations with other investments, because if someone shows you who they are, sometimes you have to believe them as well.
Yeah, people talk about smart money, but of course there's that whole thing where someone invests in your business is going to be like married to you for like 2 to 3 years in many ways, so you need to obviously get along.
I mean, this one is fundamental for me. Never, ever sacrifice your integrity.
Yeah, reputation. Hey, Chunky Designs. Who's Chunky Designs? Hey, Chunky Designs. Hey, Chunky, mate. Chunky has got the idea. He knows the costs. How does he go about funding it? Do we need funds, Kickstarter, a Kickstarter fund? Will this risk losing the idea if you raise money or go on Kickstarter? It's an interesting question.
I'll take it. I think the reality is, if you can't get it from any other source, then certainly, you know, we talk about education, and perhaps higher education not evolving much over the last 100 years, but raising money certainly has. And if you go on the internet and look at all the different ways you can raise money, particularly through crowdsourcing and crowdfunding, It's you can raise money to sticky tape your cats together to make energy or whatever it might be. Everyone will get behind all sorts of weird and wacky ideas, and if you can't get it from somewhere else, you've got to take the leap and have a crack.
David, from the Kickstarter perspective, if you launch something on Kickstarter and it's suddenly out there, obviously Chunky up there wants to know whether there's a risk of losing the idea. From a digital perspective, the idea's out there,
and that's where you've got to think really carefully about what the value of your idea is and what you need and where you need to get, what's A and what's B and how you're going to get to B. And I think a lot of the successful Kickstarter ideas are ideas where they've done a whole lot of work beforehand, and what they're looking for is the funding to actually put it into production. So everything's ready to go and to put it into production, and the time between starting the Kickstarter project and actually getting into customers' hands is hopefully not too long, and they've already locked in a lot of the value in their idea getting to that point.
Well, I would think the moment that it's out there, there's always a risk that someone's going to duplicate it anyway. So wouldn't it be a matter of just speed to market?
Look, one thing I was going to say there, the intellectual property in our ideas, there are a few businesses that have significant IP, but most of us overestimate that IP significantly, and we think that our idea is what counts. And we've already heard it's all about the individual. We heard that Richard actually backs the individual more so than the business. The reality is it's a question of understanding how to act and bring it to life. And there will be competition. If your idea is good, you're going to have competition all around you. So then it's a question of how you're going to beat that competition. So I think we overestimate the competitive threat versus actually behaving and acting.
I think this is one of my favourite questions. 24_digital. In order to innovate, we should expect failure. What have you done after a big failure to re-motivate yourself?
Do you know,
Jesus.
You're failing every
every
it's
day.
So cliche, but you're failing, I think it's about equilibrium a little bit as well, because if you're riding every bump and every failure, it's just part of the journey, and you're gonna take some time to do it. But I think, Simon has some really interesting points when I'm chatting to Simon about, how in life, how you just have to sometimes drop everything and focus on something. There isn't balance. But I think, for me personally, I like to run, for example, and I'm Forrest Gump and just kind of run. And I think, there is other things in life that you do need balance for that can give some perspective. And I think the big thing is just perspective. Sometimes, it's going wrong, but really, you know what I mean? Let's just look at it for what it really is. And I think, when you have more life experiences, as you kind of get a bit older and, in the 40s now, things happen, and maybe you just give it a little bit more perspective on things as well. But if failures are going to happen, if you're not failing, you're not really having a crack anyway, I guess.
I think someone just grabbed it. Was it Carolyn?
Yeah. I was just going to say, so for me, I'm probably a little bit different to these guys. I bought a business for $1,000 21 years ago, and I've never gone through the venture capital stuff. I've literally just made enough money that I could do, I could never borrow money because it was so little. And halfway through the journey, I sell product to Coles and Woolies, and one of the supermarket chains decided to delete the whole range. One phone call overnight, halved my business, and I remember that night being the worst night of my life, and waking up the next morning going, how do I get through this? And I'm a pretty positive, happy person. I'm like, I have to do everything I can within my power, and it is what it is. I cannot be hung up. And I think the difference with entrepreneurs is we move on to the next phase reasonably quickly, which is, okay, I can't worry about the fact that decision was made. Now I've got to say, what can I do moving forward? So I've got everyone to drive the supermarket crazy and da-da-da, and 18 months later, we got all the products back in. And what I would say is that going through that has made me paranoid, and that sort of sense of paranoid of how can I be better tomorrow than today, what I was talking about with Simon before, that's what we all, we don't sit back and go, yeah, our businesses are awesome, let's just go away for 6 months. That's not the way that you get the success that's probably some of the people up here have had.
Paranoid like a cat. I don't know if any of you own a cat, but every night it jumps in the window and lands in the bedroom like this. It's paranoid. The bedroom hasn't changed ever. There are no tigers in that room, but paranoid like a cat. Yes, Adrian?
I was just going to say, dealing with failure, which I've had to do quite a bit, but my coping strategy is to do a really good plan B whilst I'm thinking about plan A.
Yeah.
So that it's kind of sitting there, plan A is awesome, and it's the big picture, and it's the vision, and it's everything you want it to be. But, you know, and you get excited about that, but at the same time, I'm always thinking, okay, so if that screws up, then I've got plan B and plan. You go through plan B in your head, and you put that, you create as much importance and thought around that, so that it makes you feel a little bit less. You know, it helps cope when plan A goes a little bit.
I posed the question before: are entrepreneurs risk takers? I actually think that they're not risk takers. They're just better at having plan Bs. They're better at genuinely evaluating in situations and looking at what's real and what's not. Anthony Deva, where are you, Anthony? Woohoo, dude! Anthony Deva, if you could travel back in time for one day, what would you tell yourself to change to save yourself mistakes, dollars, and heartache? Get in your DeLorean, or your hot tub. What would you change, DT?
I think I'd probably just tell myself not to sweat the small stuff so much, not to worry about a whole lot of things that you look back over the last 20 years and there would have been 3 days where I was stressing about this or freaking out about that, and you move forward to now and it really didn't matter that much. You know, losing a client or that pitch or whatever it might be, in the big scheme of things, you know, these things really weren't that big a deal, you know.
Yeah, I just actually came back from a place called Antarctica, and you make a mistake there, you die. And I was with a bunch of entrepreneurs, and I asked that question, and one of them said, I have the test of 10. So I do something, and I say, will this affect me in a bad way in 10 minutes? Yes. 10 hours? Yes. 10 days? Maybe not. 10 weeks? Nah. 10 months? 10 years? Then you flip it. Will this bad thing be positive for me in 10 minutes? Well, I'll learn from it. 10 days, 10 hours, I'll still be thinking about it. 10 days, I'll probably have come up with a solution. 10 weeks, I will be stronger, my business will be stronger. 10 years, I'll still be kicking goals. It's interesting, and it puts everything nicely in perspective. Any other time travelers on the panel?
I think you. I'd probably say that you're an optimist, aren't you, all the time? And you always think things are going to be better. And you're always in a rush, I think. You know what I mean? You're always kind of rushing for the next thing, and when I get to there, that'll be better. When I get to that, it'll be better. And I think, you know, when you look back on the journeys, I guess that when we all look back, the most fun times are sometimes the start, or when you know, there's these moments where you get your first office and you got everybody sitting around and stuff. And I think, you know, you always think it's going to be better when you get there. You think it's going to be amazing when you sell the business, and then I'm going to go and do this, and I'm going to start this. Well, the reality is that the journey itself is the fun bit. You know, like, we're really privileged to be doing what we want to be able to do. And I know that sounds a bit cliche and a bit corny, and not asking everyone to hug it out like James has, but, you know, I think that it's something where, you know, it's just taking a moment and just saying, this is part of it. We've chosen to do this, and enjoy the journey as well.
Ryan, I reckon you're entirely right. So if I had my time again, I would have put in place a structure earlier with more senior management. Now, having said that, it's easier to attract more senior management as the business gets bigger and more successful. So then the journey of selling the dream and the ambition and the vision for what the business is has to happen early. And I think I had wonderful people that were actually incredibly passionate about our purpose, but I should have put in more senior management so that I could enjoy the ride more and actually become somebody who was actually, I guess, coaching and or leading with positivity, rather than getting bogged down in all elements of the business and then getting consumed by it, so perspective gets lost pretty quickly.
I can actually remember, Ryan, you saying that same thing to me about 10 years ago. And I got to tell you, it was some of the best piece of advice I've ever been given. Because when you start a new business, everything is hard and you're thinking about next time. And Ryan started young when he was 23. I started when I think I was 27. And he basically said, savour these moments, James. Savour these moments, because they will be among the best. And how true your wise words were back then 10 years ago. And on that positive note from Ryan and Simon and the rest of the crew, let's give them all a big round of applause and say thank you. Now the time has come, ladies and gentlemen, to say our goodbyes. Don't worry, I'm not going to sing. But before we do, I'm sure that you are probably keen to know who has won the Ask BSchool competition that will be slamming shots with this particular crew within the next 45 minutes. Now, what we need to do, okay, I need to huddle, guys. I need to huddle. All right, just pretend we're not here, okay? All right, we're going to huddle. Quick. right, they love the time traveler. Who is the time traveler? Woohoo! Yeah, that guy there. That guy has got 2 passes to hang out in the VIP lounge. So if you don't have a Valentine's date quite yet, check out the guy with the fuzzy beard. And that could be rubbing against your cheek later tonight. Gravel rash can be sexy. All right, to wrap things up, please help me I want you to all thank Jess, Nicole, and Lincoln behind the scenes, the BSchool team who put all this awesomeness together. Jess and Nicole, wherever you are. Ryan and David for pioneering the BSchool concept and tonight's event. Let's give them another big round. And thank you to our panel of superstar business operators, Adrian, Carolyn, Simon, Emma, Richard, and Pete. And of course, give yourselves a big round of applause for being here on this particular night and doing cool stuff and embracing the future of entrepreneurship. Have fun. Have a good night. Thanks once again. And we're out.